All right. This is our second V-eekly mandate, and we have some updates. Do you want to talk a bit about our progress update?
Yeah, so we've putting together a progressive platform. We realized that somehow we managed to leave civil rights off when we introduced our
It's infused in
platform a little
everything
bit,
we do.
yes, last week. But yeah, kind of, I guess, feel like that's a given. It's a big focus of a lot of what's been going on lately, unfortunately.
Yeah,
And
but we pulled it out. Now it's its own thing.
yes, yes. So it's bullet point. But yeah, should be incorporated in everything else for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I met with the local climate policy network late last week. We focused on conversation on data centers and on water quantity issues.
Government accessibility and inclusivity. Constituent chats every Friday. I've had constituent chats at Deluxe Bakery over on South Summit at 8 o'clock, and those are going to just keep continuing. I'll add in a few more different times. Did you have any coming up?
Yes, I have a constituent chat tomorrow morning. So that is the Tuesday the 16th at 10:30 a.m. at Zoetic Coffee, which is in the South District Market.
Cool. We also have reached out to our local immigrant leaders in terms of additional meetings. We are looking to start scheduling monthly meetings at the very least with our immigrant-led organizations and groups so that we can have more accessibility and inclusivity and just have an understanding of what's coming down the line, especially as so much funding has been approved for federal agents and ICE specifically. So I personally just feel like they're taking a breath before whatever comes next. Even though this still is ongoing, we want to make sure that we're in community with our immigrant led organizations and community.
And the Trans Advisory Committee for Johnson County did not have a formal meeting this month, but I joined members for a conversation about community outreach. The Trans Advisory Committee would love to pull more people in. If you are interested in getting involved, let us know and we can get you connected with the group. They have regular meetings at Sacred Collective, which is a really comfortable, no pressure environment. And yeah,
And
we're
if
just
you would,
really looking to get more people involved. And if you have a community event that you would like them to have a presence at, let us know too.
yeah, I was just going to say they have been moving them around too. Typically, they do meet at Sacred Collective. They've also met at United Action for Youth. Obviously, we used to have them more regularly at the county, but kind of have them out in the community now for more accessibility. Yeah, cool. So please do join us there. And that's the second Monday of the month.
From 6 to 8 p.m.
Yep.
The Johnson County DCAT board formally met for the last time last week. It's another really disappointing dismantling by the state. So DCAT boards have been a way for local government to have more control over how funding is spent on youth services, foster services, those kinds of things. And the local boards, local funding will no longer exist moving forward.
Yeah. DCAT is short for decategorization. So trying to get folks before they enter the systems. So that's a big loss. Yeah, and we're also the liaisons for secondary roads, and there's been a lot of bridge replacements. We are very fortunate in Johnson County because we have a 5-year master plan for bridges and roads. And so when you look across the state, we have some of the best bridges and roads because we invest in them quite sizably. But there have been several actually, 5 or 6 that this year needed to be replaced or lowered on their tonnage rating. So secondary roads has been doing an amazing job getting out there and replacing them, finding creative solutions to get them fixed as soon as possible, of course, for our local farmers and rural residents and anybody trying to just get around Johnson County. So super great to have that.
And I remain focused on continuing to connect with other electeds across the country, particularly other electeds that are in blue dots in red states, so that we can support each other, build off of each other's work, make sure none of us are reinventing the wheel unnecessarily. And so this last week, I had a group coaching session with other LGBTQ electeds that is through the LGBTQ Victory Institute. And then also in the spring, I participated in a 10-week leadership course. And my cohort is continuing to do quarterly check-ins. So that is electeds from all different levels of government and all different parties from across the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what's coming up for this week? I did want to touch on last week really quickly because it kind of is then going to parlay into the next couple weeks, specifically for one item, and that was the language for the bonding for the jail that was introduced last Wednesday, and it will be formally voted on at our Thursday formal meeting at 9 a.m. on June 25th. So there's a 2-week window of opportunity to, like look at it. It's in our agenda packet. I'm also just going to touch on it quickly in terms of the language that's being included because there was quite a bit of discussion on that. But there is this 2-week period of time for folks to investigate and comment, and then of course the meeting itself. So you can reach out to us, and I mean everybody on the board. So I do want to say that the notice of the actual special bond election is different language than what's actually going to be on the ballot. I'm learning here too. Honestly, I didn't know that. But so there's just a notice that gets sent out, and then there's language that's going to be, I think, more. When I say different, I just mean condensed. So the special bond election, it says, the Board of Supervisors of Johnson County, Iowa, hereby gives notice that a special county election will be held on November 3rd, 2026, at which there will be submitted to the voters of the county the following proposition, quote, shall the County of Johnson, State of Iowa, issue its general obligation bonds in an amount not exceeding the amount of $96 million for the purpose of acquiring land and constructing, equipping, and furnishing a new sheriff's office and jail facility, question mark, end quote. It is estimated the annual increase in property taxes on a residential property with an actual valuation of $100,000 resulting from issuing the bonds will be, and this is blank for the moment, but that is because they have calculations. It's something around like 107 per 100,000 or something like that. It's, however, the Board of Supervisors may determine in any fiscal year the debt is outstanding to alternatively budget from any other available revenues for the payment of principal, interest, and premium, if any, pursuant to the terms of the bonds. The jail facility component of the project is to be designed for a total bed capacity of 140, with readiness for no more than 120 beds upon initial construction. And then it goes into more formal legal language, but it just talks about the code that's part of. So that is the language specifically. There was a bit of debate about including the number of beds or not. We eventually agreed to include the number of beds because there's been so much conversation around that. So there's that. Wanted to make sure that we pulled that out from last week because it's going to be in a couple weeks. But on Wednesday at our work session, we have, I'm going to jump down to the work session real quick and then you can come back. Wednesday, we have basically $334,000 for juvenile justice youth development. Those are several contracts with different partner organizations that help youth. And it's basically since the 1990s, there are programs that promote positive youth development and are effective in preventing juvenile crime and delinquency. That's the definition on the website. So, and then we have some resurfacing projects with secondary roads. Our employee compensation study will be discussed from HR. And we may have a closed session, or we may not have a closed session on the location of the jail bond, or the jail, sorry. And then we are going to have a closed session regarding some collective bargaining negotiations. So that's kind of some of the bigger items this Wednesday. And then Thursday, really quick, I don't know if you want to talk about that and then go.
Yeah, so again, Wednesday's work sessions are when we have most of our conversation. Thursday's formal meetings are when we actually vote on things. So this Thursday, we'll be voting on transit safety plan and transit contracts. We'll be voting on the $1,349,539 of block grants that we discussed last week, and we'll be formally making appointments to our boards and commissions. Great. And then some other things outside of board meetings that are happening this coming week. Today in room 203 at the HHS building, which is that 855 South Dubuque Street, there's going to be an aging and caregiving legislative forum from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock p.m. Also, if folks have not heard, the School for Intellectual Freedom, that the regents insisted on forcing the university to open. Originally with optional classes, they are now mandating those classes due to low enrollment, which is interesting because they closed gender, sexuality, and women's studies and some other programs due to low enrollment. But this one, instead of closing it, they're going to try to force it down students' throats. So today there is a rally.
At the Levitt Center.
Yep.
At 3:30. And I think Cogs is leading it. And then they're having open public comment at 4:30 inside.
So that is something they could definitely use your support for. And then it's Pride Week. So we have on Wednesday in Coralville, there will be the picnic and pool party. And of course, the Pride Festival this Saturday, all day from noon to 10 p.m. downtown.
So many things.
But before that festival, we'll have Juneteenth ceremony that is at the South District Marketplace at 1 p.m. on Friday. And also, if anyone else listening is into theater, the free Shakespeare in the Park shows are happening right now for a few weeks.
Amazing.
Multiple times a week. You can check it out on the Riverside Theater website. They're free shows. The weather's been great. I encourage folks to check that out.
I've never been, so I really need to go because this is the weather that I want to have. And then we have our resident question of the week, which was submitted on Facebook. And the question is from Mark Wright: why does the county have to regulate everything that rural people have to deal with? And then there was a lot of descriptions of the things that Mark identified as problematic. And so, Mandy, why does the county have to regulate everything that rural people have to deal with?
Well, because regulation is a necessary part of ensuring that sensitive areas are taken care of, ensuring that residents and our environment are healthy. And when folks live in the city limits, the city does that. The city regulates things down to, in some places, how tall your grass can be. And so when you don't live in a city, you are not subject to city regulations. And so the county is the regulator instead.
And if you want to really go on a deep dive, it's called the social contract, and it's why we have government. We theoretically, from a philosophical perspective, provide safety and security, well-being, and then in return, there are things that we all have to do. That's what it kind of sums up. So, but great question, Mark. I think a lot of people don't understand the difference between city and county. We have jurisdiction over over the parts that aren't in the cities, and that's kind of what that looks like. In fact, a lot of people, we were just talking about, move to the rural areas to have less regulation. But you still have to, if you're going to build a home, if you're going to, change things on your property, collect things on your property, like there are going to be some regulations to that. So,
I mean, if you don't have, your electric up to code and you start a fire that goes onto your neighbor's land, it affects everybody.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. So, but thank you for that question. And please, please do submit questions to us, whether that's in person or on social media. We really do want to hear from you. And then our last thing for how to get involved, we have a celebration coming up. We hope people will come. It's No Victory Without Volunteers. And it is going to be on Saturday, June 27th from 6 to 8 p.m. I also found out that it's the Iowa City Block Party. So,
and it'll be at the greenhouse.
Yeah, it'll be at the greenhouse. And we have some bands that are going to play. We also are going to be, celebrating our volunteers, but also rolling out like our progressive platform and how we want to keep the momentum going. So yeah, hope to see you there. And enjoy this weather. We appreciate you taking the time to listen.
Talk next week. Bye.